Okay, so whenever I was pregnant, I went in for my 24-week OB appointment, and they found basically that I had preeclampsia. And at first, it started very mild, and my blood pressure was still in a safe, normal range. And then a couple days later, I went back, and my blood pressure was severely elevated. It was like 160s over 100. And so I was life-flighted up to Utah Valley Hospital, where they could monitor me better and everything like that. And so our goal when I got there was to stay in the hospital for 9 weeks until I was 34 weeks and I could deliver him when he was more developed. So for the first few nights, it was just monitoring me and trying to keep me stable enough to keep my blood pressure down enough at a safe level. So I was being seen by a high-risk doctor 3 times a week. So that next Friday, I was seen by the high-risk doctor, and everything still looked okay. They still felt comfortable keeping the baby in. And then the next Monday came around, and it was kind of the same thing. It was getting a little worse, but they were still kind of okay with it. And so they just monitored me for the next couple days, and then the next Wednesday came around, which was on November 11th, and I was 25 weeks and 2 days. And they found that my baby's diastolic pressures were not where they were supposed to be, and my blood pressures were in a really high, unsafe range, and I had gotten very sick very fast. So they wanted to watch his pressures for about an hour and see if they were able to come back down, and if they could come down, then they would just continue to monitor me over the next several weeks. So it had only been about 30 minutes, and his pressures just got worse and worse. And so the doctor came in and told me that we wanted to schedule a delivery for that afternoon. And I asked the doctor what my baby's chances of survival would be if we delivered that early, and he only had a 50% chance of survival. So it was really nerve-wracking. So she said that we had a couple hours, and I could call my baby's father and my family and let them know what was going on, and we could wait for them to get there. So they could be there with me. And then about 5 minutes later, she came back, and she's like, "I'm sorry, but we can't wait. We got to get this baby out as soon as possible." So they took me into the OR all by myself with no one there with me. And I was out of a C-section, which I was really looking forward to being able to have a natural birth and experiencing all that. And they originally told me that my baby was too small and they would have had to make a vertical incision, which means I would never have the chance to have a normal birth ever again. So they did the epidural and they proceeded with the C-section, and she finished up and she got all the staples in, and she looked up at me and she's like, "I have some good news for you." She's like, "I was able to make a horizontal incision, and now you have the chance to have a normal birth again." So that was really exciting. So they took me back up to the room where I could recover from that. And my boyfriend called me, and he's like, "Okay, I'm here, we can proceed with the delivery." And I had to tell him that his son was born and he couldn't be there. And it was really heartbreaking. So they waited for my body to kind of come unnumb from everything, and they took us in to see our baby, and it was the most terrifying thing I've seen in my life. He was only just 1 pound and smaller than a ruler, and we could see entirely through him. We could see all of his organs and his veins and everything. But when he first came out, he was actually breathing on his own, and he only had a nasal cannula, and he lasted on that for about a day. So that was actually really impressive for a baby his size. So I went down to the mother-baby floor, and we discussed being discharged in about 2 to 3 days. So I delivered him on a Wednesday. The next Friday came around, and I started experiencing some chest pain. So I thought it was just heartburn, and they told me, most women who just deliver, they experience some heartburn. So she gave me some heartburn medication, and only a few minutes later, the pain intensified so much, I couldn't even process how my body could be in so much pain. So they ordered an EKG, and I couldn't even hold still long enough for the EKG for them to do the EKG. So they gave me some oral pain medication, but I couldn't wait the 20 minutes for it to kick in. My body was in too much pain. And so they gave me some really strong IV pain meds, and it didn't even remotely touch the pain at all. It was still just so severe, I couldn't stand it. So then they gave me another shot of pain medication into my leg that went into my muscle, and she told me it would take 2 to 3 minutes to kick in. And I just remember thinking, like, 2 minutes is way too long. This is about to be the longest 2 minutes of my entire life, and I can't wait that long. After about 30 seconds, the pain intensified so bad that I just knew my body was shutting down. And it wasn't only the pain that I felt, but I had this feeling in my heart that I was going to die right then. And I just kept telling my mom, like, I need more. This medication isn't enough. Like, I need God. This medicine, I don't even care about medicine. I need something else. And I kept looking at my mom, and I'm like, please help me. Like, these nurses aren't doing enough. They're not taking the pain away. I can't do it anymore. And so this pain in my chest was just telling me that my body had taken enough, and it had pretty much entirely shut down on me. And I looked at my mom, and I was like, I'm sorry, but these are my last few seconds on earth, so, like, please tell my family I love them. And the only thing I could really think about is that I just had to accept the fact that I was dying right then. So at this point, we had, like, 6 nurses surrounding me. There was even, like, a nurse practitioner in there, and they're trying to do everything they can to get this pain to go away. And at this point, I could hardly function because they had given me everything they could without overdosing me. So I was just, my head was all messed up from all the pain meds. I could hardly even tell what was going on. So they took me back up to the 4th floor where they could monitor me more closely. And they had to put me on some magnesium to prevent me from having seizures, because I was going into the after stage of preeclampsia, which is eclampsia. And so they gave me some magnesium to make sure I didn't have any seizures, and they put me on bed rest. And I was diagnosed with HELLP syndrome, HELLP, which is pretty much the most severe form of preeclampsia you can get, which only happens to about 1% of women. And also it happening that early in my pregnancy and happening after delivery is very, very uncommon. So HELLP stands for hemolysis, elevated liver enzymes, and lower platelet levels. So hemolysis is basically just where your red blood cells destroy each other. And then the elevated liver enzymes, the normal range of enzymes that they should be at are from 10 to 70, and mine were at 2,000. So they were very elevated. And then the lower platelets, the normal range of platelets are 150,000 to 450,000, and mine had dropped all the way down to 16,000. And so I had gotten a really bad nosebleed, and I lost a lot of blood. We had like 4 or 5 wash rags just completely full of blood that had came from my nose, because my platelets, they're basically what make your blood clot to stop something from bleeding, and I basically didn't have any. So they kind of just kept an eye on me for a while, and then I ended up needing a platelet transfusion. And originally they came in and they told me that my medical records stated that I denied any transfusion. So it's kind of complicated at first, but I'm like, if transfusion is going to save my life, then absolutely. So they gave me the transfusion, and my platelets went up to about 80 to 100,000, which was still really low, but I was a lot more stable. And so I was able to go back down to the 3rd floor, and then I waited for a few days, and I got discharged. But the nurses were telling my mom that my recovery from that was outstanding, and God definitely worked a miracle on my recovery for sure. So something that God has done for my baby, he has made the most outstanding progress that the doctors have seen in the NICU. And everything that he should have had being premature, he didn't have. And so he didn't have any bleeding in his brain. He doesn't have any eye diseases. He doesn't have any IVs right now. So he is improving really well, and the doctors have never seen anything like it. So, yeah. Also, we started getting really worried about our finances because I'm still not able to return to work right now. And so I was worried that we weren't going to get by with me not making any money. And we have received so many blessings since all this happened, so much financial support. And God has just done so much for my new family. And I couldn't have, it was a very traumatic experience, but I couldn't have asked for a better outcome.
Amen. You got a good hugger.
That's two. We believe in a God of miracles. Amen. We have the privilege to pray over you a lot, and it really is a privilege. And I had called your parents on occasions. I didn't want to bother you because I know that, yeah, you don't need me, sending texts and stuff like that. But we had the opportunity to pray with you, and you were on our heart a lot. And there was times where we're waking up in the middle of the night and praying. And why is that? Because God so loves you, and He is so for you, and every one of His, He knows and He claims, and He looks for people to stand in the gap. Guys, prayer makes a difference. And I love something you said, and we're not against doctors. No, that's the stupidest thing. We are for them. But when doctors come to the end of themselves and they don't know what to do or how to proceed, we believe in divine intervention. Sometimes God will give them a thought, a little nudge in the right direction. Try this, or have you looked at that? But then even when those things are exhausted, God shows up to see things through. We honor God. We love Him. Thank you for sharing your testimony. Thank you. And wow, we're with you. We're with you. Golly, she preached better than I did.